Going over the questions. The next week, in Mitzvah Hashem, we're starting, maybe tomorrow we'll start a new minor. We start on a Friday, you have to start on the beginning of the week.
Right now, the new minor is tomorrow.
Depends how we'll do today.
It's not today.
Not today, but if you finish the questions today, we'll start the new minor tomorrow. Okay, so the questions in the booklet should start on page 15. First, we'll start with the Tilim for Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe should, in the Schus of the Tilim and the Schus of the Tzedakah, show his great miracles in Eretz Yisrael. We should have a complete miraculous victory today, and everybody should go home. All the soldiers, all the hostages, Gesundheit. And all of us will go home to Eretz Yisrael with Mashiach Tzedkenu. Okay, Kapitel Chof. Lam Natseach Mizmor LeDavid. Yan Chadinoi B'Yom Tzara Yisagevcha Shem Elohei Yaakov. Yishlach Ezrecha Mikodesh U'Mitzion Yisadeka. Yizker Kol Min Chesecha V'Eiloscha Yidashne Sela. Yiten Lecha Chel Vavecha V'Chol Atzoscha Yimalei. Eranuna B'Shuasecha V'Shem Eloheinu Nidgeu. Yimalei Adonai Kol Mishalei Secha. Ato Yedaiti Ki Yeshia Adonai Meshichai. Ya'anehu Mishmei Kodshay. B'Gvuros Yesha Yaminoi. Eila B'Rechev V'Eila B'Susim. V'Nachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Naski. Eimo Korov V'Nafolo V'Nachnu Kabbalah Seder. Le'Yeshia Melech Yaneinu B'Yom Kareinu. It's the Yafi. If you don't mind, this, today Mrs. Nem is going to take both classes together. So this I'll be doing tomorrow. You can just put it in the plastic or on the desk, and don't put it in my room.
The plastic?
You know, in the plastic on the wall or on the desk. Or on the desk, and I'll take it later. Okay, so we'll start with the questions. Shana, you might as well have one.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So the questions are on page 23. Let's start with the first period 15. Why is the first request in Shemona Esrei for wisdom? Yeah.
Because you have to have wisdom to see kind of what it is you have to have wisdom to see what it is you need to work on.
Need to work on and what you need to ask for. In other words, the whole idea of Shemona Esrei is asking Hashem for our requests. So the first request is I should have seichel to know what's important, what's priority. And in the Maimon says I should know that priority is ruchnius, and the gashmius. If the ruchnius is in order, then the gashmius will be in order. So therefore, when we're asking Hashem, we want to first of all say, Hashem, give me the wisdom that I should understand what's ikar and what's secondary. Number two, what is the difference spiritually between a sword and a bow? Meaning a bow and arrow.
These are the things that either are very close to us, so you need a sword, or it's a bow and arrow, like you're going to attack it from far away.
So what does close mean or far mean?
The character traits or the negative aspects that we can't see that are so close to us right, we can't see them, and they're a little bit more coarse, and then the ones that are far away, it's easier to see and recognize. And,
I did say something like that, but that was in the context of something else.
Oh.
Here's the opposite. Close means that it's easy to see because it's obvious, and far is where it's harder to see. Generally speaking, that's the way it works.
Right.
I think you heard this in reference to self-love. We said that self-love means because I love myself, I don't see my faults.
Right.
But the question is, if it's close, I should really see things better.
Yeah.
But the answer is, if it's too close, like if I put something right in front of my eye with my finger, I won't see anything.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Rabbi Majeski, I must say, the door, they didn't open the door.
Anyway, it's only 8:30, so. Good morning. Mrs. Jaffe wasn't downstairs?
Probably she was busy in the kitchen.
Okay. Okay, we considered it as if you were here on time. I didn't even take attendance, you see? I forgot to take attendance. Okay. You did it, Chana? You did the attendance?
I started to do it, and then usually I'll wait till the after class to finish doing it.
Oh, yeah, you'll do it after class? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3 is we just explained. Number 4, what is the spiritual meaning of the bracha of Geula on a personal level? We know what redemption means on a communal level, but what is on a global level? But what does Geula mean on a personal level?
Personal level? It means working on yourself. Things within yourself that need fixing, and then Geula is.
Why use the term Geula, which means redemption? Redemption usually means we're in exile, and we have to go out of exile. So on a personal level, our nefesh elokis is held captive by the nefesh Bahamas. So if I know, for example, I should be doing something, or I should not be doing something, but I don't have the strength to do that, that means my nefesh Bahamas is holding me captive. So I'm asking Hashem, help me free myself from my personal limitations. What is the spiritual meaning of the bracha of refuah in this context? I know what it means in general, but in the context of the Maimer. So I remind you, what he said in the Maimer is a person who is held captive, like we unfortunately we see it now, when Hashem helps and they go out of captivity, they still need a lot of work to undo the damage that was done by being in this place. Physical damage and emotional damage, psychological damage, that's while they were there. So Nefesh Elokis was held captive by Nefesh Bahamas. If I free it, Baruch Hashem, but then I need another bracha to cure it from any of the damage, any trace that's left from the time that it was held captive. The next bracha is number 6. What is the spiritual meaning of the bracha of Mevorach Hashanim? Mevorach Hashanim is the bracha for sustenance. Whatever I plant in the field, it should grow, there should be rain. So spiritually, it also means I learn Torah, I do mitzvahs, and we need a bracha that all this should produce the what I wanted to produce. In other words, bring me spiritual blessing. When a person learns and davens, it should help me become more refined, and I should be able to accomplish the things that I need to accomplish and achieve spiritually. For that, you also need a special bracha from above. Number 7. Why do we say Ashamnu after Shemona Esrei? Wouldn't it be more appropriate to say Ashamnu, which means I'm doing tshuva, wouldn't it be more appropriate before Shemona Esrei, before I go in to see the king, not after?
Because I can become aware of the little things that we didn't know.
Right. So explain in the Maimer that when a person goes, they rise to a higher spiritual level. When you rise to a higher spiritual level, you start noticing things that you didn't notice before, or you didn't feel that this was something lacking. And now, as I've risen to a higher level, those little things that weren't noticeable before started to become apparent. And now I work on getting rid of that. Like we gave the mashal of the beggar, the garment, if it's stained, there might be things on the garment that are not in order, but you don't even see it because they're so stained. Then you take the garment and you wash it and you clean it. Some things didn't get clean, but now you notice it because the whole garment is clean. It's all whitewashed. Now you see those little things that you have to take care of. What is the main point of this whole chapter? I didn't explain it in the class, so I'll say it now. But basically, we can say the main point is to explain the difference between the sword and the bow and arrow. Being was saying that davening is like a war with the Nebuchadnezzar Bahamas, and in war you need weapons. And we see from the pasuk, actually this was yesterday's chitas, if you noticed it. I'm sure you got excited when you did chitas. Wow, that's the mimer we're learning. That Yaakov said, I took this piece of land with my sword and with my bow and arrow. That's exactly what the mimer is talking about. So to understand that this is the avodah, to deal with the negativity that's blatant and coarse, and you can see it, and the negativity that's more subtle and not so noticeable. And in fact, in some ways, that's even more dangerous than the other. Okay, let's turn to page 24. So what are the 5 weapons altogether? Remember, we said there are many weapons, and especially in today's day and age, we have weapons that never existed before. But these are 5 categories of weapons, and each one represents a different kind of category. So according to Torah, what are the 5 weapons?
So, sword, shield, stick. Is club the same as a stick?
Yeah.
Like sword, shield, stick, spear.
Spear, right? Yeah. So it's a sword and a spear and a club and a bow and arrow and a shield. The other 4 are to attack, and the shield is to be protected from an attack. What is it that characterizes a kelev in this mimer? Again, no offense to anybody who has a dog that's nice and pleasant, but in theory.
The dog wants to attack you if you can't reason with it.
And how is it in the word kelev? Right. That kelev is made up of 2 words, kuloi, lev. It's all heart, it's all emotion. When he gets angry, you can't reason with him because it's just pure emotion. And the Gemara says, Rishoyim are compared to klovim. What is this connection between the breaking of the kelim in the world of Tohu and the fact that the spheres are separate branches?
That you need a vessel to contain it, and like in different vessels and different like
Right. So why is the fact that they're separate branches? Why does that lead to shvirat hakelim? Is the question. Lama zeh gorem shvirat hakelim?
Because they don't make space for one another.
So what does it do with separate branches?
So each branch does like his own job and his own thing, and then each one in charge of something else. And shvirat hakelim, so like from the source of the big light, it's like we have like ishtalshalut, like yeah, so we can like take the light. Yeah.
Almost. So we said that in the world of Tikkun, the spheres include each other, which means Chesed has in it Gvura. Gvura has in it Chesed. If each sphere contains the other in it, then therefore they could merge, they can connect to each other. How could chesed connect to Gevura when they're two opposites? The answer is because chesed has in it an element, an aspect of Gevura, and that way it can connect to Gevura. How could Gevura connect to chesed? Because Gevura has chesed in it, so Gevura could connect to chesed. But if Gevura is pure Gevura, and chesed is pure chesed, then they clash. The example we gave was Begashmis. You have two people, and one person is chesed, and one person is Gevura. You probably know the word in English when you say somebody is square. Square chesed. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just going chesed. No, but you have a little bit Gevura, no chesed, just chesed. So this is just chesed, and that's just Gevura, and both are going opposite directions, they're going to clash. So how could a chesed person relate to doing something which needs, let's say, discipline and Gevura? They must have some Gevura element in them to relate to the idea of Gevura, otherwise they'll never be able to do it. Like I gave an example of an adult that cannot relate to children, can't tolerate children, can't relate to their needs, can't relate to what they get upset about. What's the big deal? If it's a red balloon or a blue balloon, come on. It's the same balloon. No, I want a red one. And they start crying. Some kids cry, they get a tantrum. Some kids turn blue in the face, almost fainting. What happened? I want a red balloon. So there are those that just can't relate to that. But how could an adult relate to it? Because I was once a child. So because I was once a child and I understand children, I could relate to the way a child thinks. But if I wouldn't have that experience and I wouldn't have that connection, there's no way I can understand what in the world is the difference if it's red or blue. So basically, chesed and gevura in the world of tikkun each include each other. So that's why they make space for each other, they connect to each other. But in tohu, because they're separate branches, means absolutely separate. In an absolute way, chesed is pure chesed, gevura is pure gevura, and the chesed light is a very intense chesed, and the gevura is very intense gevura, so they clash and everything falls apart. So when people ask, let's say in reference to shidduchim, what if we're a little bit different personalities? Different is not the end of the world. Probably aren't too many couples in the whole universe that are exactly carbon copies of each other. The main thing is how different and how sharp that difference is and how flexible the person is. And then you could be different and just complement each other. Yep.
But don't you think like values have like, a lot to do with it more than like a person's more before, more passive, like if they have like similar values, it's,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Makes things easier.
I remember somebody was saying that if two people have the same values but different interests, they can work it out. If they have the same interests but different values, it's not going to work. Okay. What is the connection between the above and the fact that the meichen is disconnected from midos and tohu? What does that have to do with the whole picture? Everyone knows the answer. Everybody's just shy to speak. Okay.
The midos are like less intense when there is seichel involved.
So what do the midos accomplish?
It softens it.
What?
It softens it.
It softens. Yeah, it's a softening agent. The meichen, the seichel, the logic softens the midos. When they're based on logic, they're more limited, and therefore they're not as intense, and therefore they can be flexible. So the world, both on a personal level, in the human being, and in the spheres, if meichen is not connected to the midas, then they're intense. So there is, and that's what happened in the world of Tohu. A realm of intellect was not connected to the realm of midas. Often the Nefesh Habahamis has good reason for its emotional outburst. Is it considered midas of a behemoth, or in that case, it's really an intellectual thing? And the midas are so intense that the person is not flexible. But they have a reason, so there is logic.
So the intellect is guiding the emotions.
That's the question. It's the Nefesh Habahamis flying off the handle, all out of control, but they have a reason. So how does that work? So the answer is, he says in the Maimer, very often, the reason comes after the emotion. We're talking about an emotion that comes from reason, was produced by reason. So being that every logic and reason has a certain limit, so the emotion will be limited. But the Nefesh HaBahamis, it really is primarily emotion. The reason comes later to give a license to my emotional outburst.
Because they don't have recall for seichel.
Right. They're really not, it's really not based on seichel, it's really all midos. But because, you want to justify yourself, so therefore all sorts of reason and logic come to my mind to justify why I did something which is totally unethical and wrong and criminal and whatever, as we see happening all the time. So that's that. Sometimes reason comes before emotion, but in this case, the reason comes after the emotion. Yep.
Wait, what did you say? How can you tell which one comes first?
Usually, when the emotion's out of control, that's a sign that the reason is really just the reason is born out of emotion, not the emotion is born out of reason.
It says the heart holds the hands.
What?
The heart holds the hands.
The heart holds the hands.
Like the heart, your heart is the emotion.
Yeah, the heart is controlling,
what your
right?
hands are doing.
Right. So even though there's seichel, but the seichel is there, it's a rationalizing, just to justify what I'm doing. Again, we're living in a time where all this is so clear, you don't even need a mimer to explain it. We have people out there that are horrific anti-Semites doing things, supporting the most unbelievable things in the world nobody would have ever imagined, and they have reason for it and logic, and they explain it. But it's clear that the logic doesn't make any sense. I remember seeing this guy speaking who's not a Jew, who's actually an Arab coming from Yemen, and he says that I don't understand what this was early in the whole situation when they said that 7,000 people were killed. We don't know how many were terrorists and how many were civilians, but he said, I don't understand. 400,000 people were killed in Yemen, in my country, by Arabs, and so many hundreds of thousands of people were killed over here by Arabs, and hundreds of thousands of people killed there around. Nobody ran to the streets, and nobody was making commotion, and nobody was protesting. Why now? 6,000, 7,000 people, and who knows how many of them are terrorists, everybody is protesting. He didn't give the answer. But what is the answer?
The Jews.
Because it's Jews. Because it's not logic. If it would be logic, then it should have done it before. Should have been done by all the other places where it's even more bigger numbers than this.
Yeah.
And the answer is people don't care. Who cares? I'm living my life. But here it's about hating the Jews, not about loving the people that are the victims. So that's an example. What?
Sorry. Because they kill their own people too.
They kill their own people, so
they
that
have there's no logic.
So all the reason and the logic is just like I have an emotion, I want to make it legit, so I have a reason that makes sense. Subconscious works that way. So what's the main point of chapter 16? So chapter 16, if you write down the main point, I would say, because he was out to explain the club, he didn't explain it yet, but he's describing how the Nefesh HaBahamis has emotions that are out of control because it's not guided and it's not born out of seichel. Later, he's going to explain, being that there's such kind of emotion, it needs a special way of dealing with it. So now we come to page 25. After explaining this, chapter 17. So why is the only remedy for the Rishayim a club? Remember, the Medrash says just like klavim can only be dealt with a club, so too, it's funny that the word club would be spelled probably chof lamed beis. I'm saying the English word club would be spelled like kelev, chof lamed beis. So the Gemara says just like a kelev needs to be beaten with a club, that's how Rishayim need to be beaten with the club. Why? What's the connection to what he said before? Because there's no logic there, it's just emotion. So you can't reason. You can't walk over to a dog and say, please, calm down, let me explain you something. You'll be bitten before you finish your sentence. So there's no other way, just have to beat him with a club, then he backs up. So the same thing with a Russia, he's so emotional with his passions, that reason will not stop him from pursuing his passions and doing his things which are against Torah or against logic and against all laws of ethics and morality. The only way to stop him is with the club. And then he's going to explain. After the club, then you can talk and explain, and he's ready to listen. Okay, what does it mean when it says in Tanya that one should have his Yetzer Hara shout angrily as his Yetzer Tov, shout angrily as his Yetzer Hara? Well, this is the big question that came up in class, like practically speaking, what does it mean? And generally speaking, from what it says in Tanya, in that chapter 29, it appears to be that the general process is when my Nefesh Elokis explains things to my Nefesh Abamis, I explain things to myself, and sometimes I have to like just hit him over the head. Which means I have to shake it up and sort of be angry, meaning to say, talk to myself. It doesn't mean scream Chas v'Shalom out loud, but talk to myself in very strong language to Yetzer Hara should be shocked, and it's like shock treatment to get to just stop and listen to what I have to say. Number 3. Well, 3 is a continuation. The beating of the Nefesh Abamis is only a preparation to transform it. So now the question is, what is the difference between the club and the spear? These 2 weapons.
One softens and one penetrates.
A little bit different.
Spear can go farther,
What is the difference physically between a spear and a club?
longer, sharper.
The spear does internal damage. Club.
Okay, so you're saying external damage or internal damage, but it's even more than that. A spear is used to kill, and a club is used to discipline. Like even when we said before about a dog, you're not killing the dog, you're just hitting it so it should stop attacking. Spiritually means there's certain things in my Yetzer Hara that I have to eliminate completely. That's which things? Which things do I have to eliminate completely? The taiva, the passion for things that are usur, that are prohibited. Then the Nefesh Abamis could also be very passionate to the point of indulging in physical pleasure. And I need to stop that. But that, use a club, meaning to say, that's not something you have to destroy and eliminate. You have to actually take that passion and find a way to redirect it in a positive thing. But that's the difference between things that are usur, they have to be eliminated completely. That's the spear. Things that are permissible, I have to learn how to do it in a balanced way, in a disciplined way, and that's the club. What is the shield spiritually? Everybody knows, okay.
Some sort of,
I was not here.
You're excused, okay.
is it some sort of protection?
Obviously, yeah. Protection of what? And especially during davening.
When you have negative things come into your mind, you can keep them at bay.
And why do we wear the shield all day?
So we can stay focused and keep deflecting things that come in that try to distract us from.
Right, but why specifically during davening do we need the shield with the tefillah and talis? Yep.
To protect our eyes.
Yeah.
Isn't it because it's not that necessarily maybe that the thoughts that come in during davening are always bad thoughts, it's just that it's really not the time for them? So,
That's also true. Also true.
To do more solidarity.
That's all true. But my question was why specifically during davening? Why don't we have talis all day? Of course, it's going to get in the way in my work if I have the talis on my head the whole time. Won't be able to work properly. But there's a reason in the mind why dafka during davening we need a shield.
Maybe because during the davening we need to focus only on the Hashem on one direction, and during the day we're being promoted.
That's also true.
Because it's specifically during davening, and Nefesh HaBahamis puts thoughts.
What?
Because it's specifically during davening that the Nefesh HaBahamis puts thoughts in like a person's head.
Right. So if you would just look at number 6, you would see the answer there. Why do negative thoughts come to the mind during davening? Is this a sign that something is wrong with my davening?
Probably
No.
something is good
No.
for davening.
Right.
When you're davening, are you on that higher level?
Right. Because I'm davening, I'm a higher level, the Nefesh HaBahamis gets threatened, and that's why he's attacking. So in other words, the fact that I'm getting the negative thoughts, the Alter Rebbe says, even a baby could sometimes get depressed. How come I'm getting these thoughts in davening? Isn't that a sign that my davening is worthless? The Alter Rebbe says, no. You're getting these thoughts because the Nefesh HaBahamis feels very threatened, more in davening than anything else you do, and therefore he's attacking. So that's why during davening we need a shield to protect us from these thoughts. Of course, the shield is I have to work on myself to distract, but physically is the talis. And what do women do? So we said, but the men who wear the talis, that gives a protection also to the women. What is the main point of Perek 17? So the answer to this would be 2 things. First of all, he concludes what is the spiritual weapon of the club, how the club is something that's done to Nefesh HaBahamis that prepares it, enables it to listen to the meditation of the Nefesh Elokis. And the second thing is, here's where he introduces the next one, which is the shield, the 5th weapon, the shield. So at the end of this chapter, we have all 5: the sword, the bow and arrow, this club, the spear, and the shield. Now we're up to chapter 18. How is it that the korban on the Mizbeach is a kapara? Person did an Aveira, and he brings a sacrifice. How in the world is that connected to be an atonement for an Aveira? Hint, hint. Olam HaTohu. Sparks. High, low. Food.
But you elevate the Bema, you make it like holy, and you give it all of your chataim, so it's like she going korban.
That's the simple explanation. I'm looking for the Hasidic explanation.
The sparks, is that it? The
Yeah.
sparks that go to the animal?
So how does that, what does that do? So let me remind you again. When a person does an Aveira, it causes a pagam. What's a pagam, remember? Blemish, a defect. A defect in the spiritual realm, a defect in my neshama. And the way to sort of overcome that, to fill the gap, whatever is missing should be refilled and refreshed. You have to draw from a higher place. Remember the mashal with the river? When a river dries out or a well dries out and there's no water, how do I get water? I have to dig deeper. When I dig deeper, more, there's always water down. They just have deep enough, the water will rise. Spiritually, in order to fill whatever damage was done, to fill it up back the way it was before, we have to reach somewhere deeper. So when you bring a korban, there are sparks of the world of Tohu in the animal. Those sparks come from a world of Tohu, which is higher than the source of the person. And because it's higher, when I draw that down, that has the power to correct all the damage that was done. That's the Mizbeach. Number 2, how is that one's table accomplishes the same thing? Because when we're eating food, we're doing the same thing. There's sparks of Tohu in the food. When I eat it with the kavanah that this should be like the Mizbeach, my eating food should be like a korban. So the same thing happens. The sparks of Tohu in the food goes back to its source, draws down a light from a very high level, and when that's brought down, it could compensate for all the things that were missing and lacking, and the pagam that was done through my Aveira. In other words, you don't just bring a sacrifice. Of course, you have to do tshuva. But we're concerned, tshuva means Hashem forgives me, there won't be any punishment, He'll wipe it off the account. But what about the damage that I did? So the bringing the carbon corrects the damage. Eating food by the table like a carbon also corrects the damage.
But what happens spiritually, like when a person sins or does something and regrets it, and then after, how do I explain this? After going through the process, something positive happens. Like, what is the shift? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like,
Not yet.
because sometimes something seems so negative, you know, like, why did I do that or something like that? And then somehow something transforms and it becomes something positive.
Well, because that's what tshuva is. Tshuva draws out deeper energy of the neshama. And that makes the shift. That's what tshuva is. Tshuva means that I'm going deeper into myself. I feel regret for what I did. I make a strong resolve not to do this again. But in order to do that, I'm sort of drawing from a deeper place of my neshama. And when that comes out, that's the positive energy that came as a result of this, and now that gives me positive strength.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, let's move a little bit quicker. What happened to the godly spark in the food when it's eaten, l'shem shamayim? What happens when it's eaten only for pleasure? If it's eating l'shem shamayim, it gets elevated, it reconnects to its source in the world of Tov. But if it's eaten only for the sake of pleasure, then I bring it down to shalosh klipos hatmeis. Yeah.
Doesn't it stay in klipos noga? Like
It stays in klipos before I get to it. Once I get to it, it's in trouble. Either I lift it or I bring it down.
Wait, isn't it already down? You bring it further down?
Further down. Before I eat it, it's klipos noga. After I eat it with the wrong intention, then it becomes shalosh klipos hatmeis.
So
But
then
it's
how does love routine that spark that got pushed down by our? Like,
when a person is tribulated, all these sparks get re-elevated.
wow. So like all of the, like even treif.
No, treif is a different category.
Okay. No, but like before we did teshuva, like all of the, like you can't even touch that, or even that too was elevated.
Talking about the treif?
Yeah, like even before.
So the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in order to elevate the treif, if a person is experiencing a tshuva, which is a very strong tshuva, that can transform all the treif.
Like what Baal Teshuvas do, like when we come.
So let me explain it very briefly because the clock, my friend, is always making trouble here. Let me explain it. 5 minutes left. But it's important not to walk away with a misconception. Generally speaking, the Alter Rebbe says like this: if I do an ordinary tshuva, then there's no reason why the sparks that of treif should be elevated. It's klipa, it's shalosh klipos hatmeis, and you can't elevate it. It's just sort of dead. But there is a tshuva that elevates shalosh klipos hatmeis. What tshuva is it? If a person, it's called tshuva me'ava rabba. If a person reaches the level of tshuva, that he has such a passion of love for Hashem, that had he not done the Aveira, he never would have had such a passionate love. In other words, because I went so far away, that's what generated such a strong desire to get closer. So therefore, that means that my Aveira actually became a catalyst for greater love for Hashem, and that transforms the Aveira. That's number one. But the question is, so how many of us do this tshuva that's wow, like, this fire burning to the point that we can say, I could never have reached this level of love without doing the Aveira before. So first of all, in general, when a person does tshuva, there is something, a certain degree of appreciation and a certain degree of love for Yiddishkeit and Torah mitzvahs, which is stronger than a person who's had his whole life. That's number one. But number two, I want to say what the Rebbe told a number of people, that I heard it from them myself, where they wrote to the Rebbe this question, after learning Tanya, like, what happens with all the treif that I ate? The Rebbe says it can be elevated. So the Rebbe wrote to them that they should try to inspire other people to keep kosher. So I want to explain, based on this, what that means. It's not just, if you inspire other people and that reward Hashem, no. Inspiring people to keep kosher is the same principle as doing this tshuva me'ava. Why? if you walk over to a person, like somebody once told me, I was talking about kashrus, he was already from, but he said, you would tell me about keeping kosher, I would tell you, you don't even know what a real bagel tastes like. You don't know what it's all about. Now he's talking, he's like so passionate about it. The food that we used to have, it was like this and this and that. He told me that maybe you heard this from him, he once spoke in the home. He produces these foods, so he made something called faken. It's fake bacon, fake chazer, fake bacon. But in other words, it's artificial, so it's permissible. So he said somebody once walked over to him and said, "You're the one who made it." He hugged him and he kissed him. It's amazing. So basically, we're talking about someone that walks over to another person and tells them to keep kosher. It's like you don't understand the difficulty, the challenge. And therefore, it might not have the same influence. But somebody who was there and made that sacrifice, and they speak to someone else about doing it, it has so much more of an impact. Why? Dafka, because I was there. Professor Branover, who was a brilliant scientist, physicist. So when he used to speak to people, unfortunately, he's for Shleiman now, but when he used to speak to people in this field, they heard it totally different. Like he would say, I was an atheist and I didn't believe in anything. And then this and this and this. And when they hear it from him, because of all the years that he was an atheist, that's why now they're able to hear him differently and they can be influenced by him. So that means that what he did in a negative way actually becomes now a catalyst for something positive. The same with Taras HaMishpacha, the same with Kashrus, the same with everything. That when a person did something and then I'm trying to be mashpia on another person and I succeed, that because I did this in the past, that in itself is able to transform it to become elevated, even if it shows groups at price. That's why I understood from the Rebbe's answer.
Can people eat just for pleasure? Because it's saying what happens when one eats only for pleasure. But
Oh boy, the shore can eat for pleasure. People know how to do that, right?
You get food and you.
So I explained, if we're going to start, if we'll say to ourselves, don't get any pleasure from the food. Like the old Chassidus used to put salt on all the food, you shouldn't feel the pleasure. For us, pleasure of food could also be included in serving Hashem. Because the bottom line is, if I'm feeling good, if I'm in a good mood, and if I'm feeling comfortable, everything about me and my life is going to be more successful. So if a person's eating food, these are things which are like soothers. It makes us feel better. If I feel better, I can function better. And I can function as a Jew better. So in a certain sense, even eating today, our standards are very different than things were years ago. But even eating food for pleasure today could be a way of serving Hashem and positive. Which means if a person eats food, I think that today the avodah is not to indulge in physical pleasure, but to have physical pleasure is what keeps us going. The other road.
So other way, for example, the coffee. People go practical. I need to say one kind of say, I'm bringing the coffee so I can focus on the class, or I just need to say a bracha.
You just need to say a bracha, but the fact that a person has that thought that whatever I do, eating, drinking, I drink a coffee so that now I can concentrate more, that itself is an effect. Doesn't mean you have to necessarily sit down and say, Hineni, Muchan, Muzuman, Lashtot, Cafe, the Kavanah. It means that this is the general Kavanah of a person. Okay. Hatzlacha today, everybody.
Maybe Rabbi
Chana, you finish it, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I got it.
Mashiach is going to be together with Mrs. Nemni on the second floor, so if you can make your way down there now. Thank you.